were talking about the UAP hearings and, Grush and the things, what came out. And, we both were like, Grush is not a whistleblower.
No, no, he's not. No.
He's only telling third party information. But
Second, third, yeah, exactly.
the people that were actually giving Grush the information and Congress the information were there. They were behind closed doors.
Yes.
Grush was hearing this over a conversation, talking to Burchett and saying, okay, now you go out and you relay it. For him to be considered a whistleblower isn't really accurate.
No, you'd have to be
right. The documents he put forth, for them to be taken literally or to be respected as an authentic document and or a legal document in a court of law and certainly in Congress, that would have had to gone through a lawyer would have had to look at it. This is authentic and can now be used as an alternative to the original.
Correct.
So none of the documents were original.
As you've heard me say, Thom, I still remain convinced it's a cover-up of ignorance, that they still don't know from where, from why, or from who. And as a result, in all their attempts to reverse engineer, whether it was the materials, the craft from Roswell, or any other incident thereafter, that they still can't find the on button.
A lot of people think we back engineered craft. We have mimicked them, but we haven't actually back engineered them because the technology is so far advanced that we don't even have minerals or the capabilities to do anything. And we were talking about this earlier, like, all this technology, like we had television sets in the, the early 1940s. We already had pictures taken from Earth, from rockets in the 40s. We already had the technology that we have today. We just hadn't really manufactured anything to show that the information that we had or what we could do with that technology. So for everyone to think, oh, we back engineered the 1947 crest. No, we didn't.
That no matter how they tried to cut or burn or even a blast furnace, we even have witnesses of that effect. 2,000 degrees had no effect whatsoever. Everything is assimilated into the private sector. And so through the years of our investigation, we've had firsthand witnesses at Boeing, at Lockheed, at Lear, at Sperry, at Bell, at Mart Corporation, at Patel, at Rand, at Hughes, all describing their failed efforts in trying to break through, this technology. And they can't bridge it. It's a quantum leap. They just cannot bridge that gap. Smith in Independence Day, he jumps in the cockpit and he's able to fly that thing like he's done it 100 times. Oh, come on, you people are stupid.
So that's why this whole idea of back engineering, was there any way to back engineer anything? The only way they possibly could have done it would be retrieving, from my conversations with Congress or Burchett, was at the Roswell crash. If there was any way to penetrate anything, it would have had to have come from a crashed craft, because they can't penetrate one that's not crashed. So that's what I'm trying to see if there's any
one that's not crashed.
Right, they can't penetrate this outer ring of it, so they can't get to it to even back engineer anything. So many people say, "Oh, I think what we see in Arizona, the Phoenix lights. That was that back engineered? Was it mimicked or was it authentic? What was it?" And so when I'm talking to Burchett in the table there, they're like, no, from what I've seen, there's no way it could have been, because we can't even penetrate this thing. However, there have been crashes and debris. But if that thing crashed and they were able to get the parts or be able to see what it was made of and, get a better idea by even the foil that they found, I mean, that they can test that and at least get an idea of what that is. They can slowly start to back engineer parts of it, perhaps, or parts of the technology, but to actually back engineer an entire craft, I don't think it's happened yet.
The wonderful thing about Roswell, in that it happened in 1947, when both jet and rocket, technology were in their infancy. There were no satellites. The skies were generally virgin. They were clear. There were no drones. There was nothing that came close to what the eyewitnesses were describing during that summer of 1947. And then one crashes and all bets are off, because at first the military thought, my God, it must be Russian, because this material does not resemble anything in our arsenal. And then they thought, my God, help us, because if it is Russian, we're in trouble, because it's that advanced, that superior. But then they quickly realized it wasn't from here. And we have to keep in mind that on Tuesday, July 8th, 1947, the Roswell Army Airfield, which was the headquarters of the first atomic bomb squadron.
Right, just before that.
Yeah, they put out the press release. They actually announced they had captured a flying saucer. Matter of historic fact, the United States government actually claimed on that day that they had captured one. And then 5 hours later, they explained it all away as a weather balloon with a radar reflector kite. General Arthur Exon, who was at Wright Pat, more directly Wright Field at that time, and it was at Foreign Technology Division, which would do all the testing and analysis and the back engineering of anything they recovered from Nazi Germany after World War II. If they would so much as get their hands on a Russian MiG fighter, that's where it would go. Foreign technology at Wright Pat. According to General Exon, that for all of the testing of the wreckage at Roswell, they unanimously concluded that this material was made from off the planet, was not from here. So that's how quickly they realized that we were dealing with a technology that was foreign to planet Earth.
So, in your opinion, do you think that if they're aliens, that they're biological, are they AI, or are they like interdimensional beings?
Elon Musk revealing a second patient has been implanted with Neuralink, an experimental brain-computer interface that allows patients to control technology with their mind, to more efficiently interface with the digital world and even compete with artificial intelligence. Back to Neuralink, Musk hopes to implant 8 more patients by year's end.
What's your feeling on the fact that maybe we are the most advanced, biologically advanced person in the universe? A more advanced brain with a chip in it, and that we are now going to be connected to, the internet. As far as the galaxies go, that humans are now the most advanced biological being, and that's why there might be a need for us.
Well, Thom, I think you've come across this even in your own research and then even by your own experience. And that one of the things that they are specifically intrigued, fascinated, and then using us for is in trying to recover that.
We're the most advanced biological being, which they probably have gotten so far away from that they've lost a lot of the emotions, they've lost a lot of things that make us human. And so we become of interest for our. Right.
They're like machines, right?
And I also think that the O negative.
I was about to say, like robots.
Just imagine, just being a robotoid, just being something that really has no emotional connection to anyone else or anything else. Music, art, what have you? We think we're nothing special, but we are special in that regard.
Our minds are dialed back. Look at someone who's autistic. They can listen to one song and then bang out Beethoven. So we are, I think, regulated in some way. There's got to be a way to tap into more of our brain power, and I think they're able to do that. So you take a human being who's got 140 IQ, you give them a chip, you turn them into more of an advanced human being. Now you've got almost like these superhuman extraterrestrials. And I think that's where we're going. I think that's, kind of what we're seeing and what we're up against. If that's the case, then they don't need resistors and EEPROMs to control their crafts. That's why I say that the technology we have is mundane compared to what we're looking at. I think that there's going to be a connection between that person or that individual and the craft itself. There's going to be like they're connected as one.
So you're telling me I can rule the world? Basically.
You could rule the world, right? So
just give me like 5 years.
You keep wearing that dress, you can.
What you're also describing, Thom, and that would be the extent. On what's interesting too is that in so many of these, occupant as well as abduction experiences, that they all appear to be clones. They all are identical. It's like they've all come out of the same sardine can, so to speak. But that AI would eliminate our uniqueness. And that's what I'm concerned about, the idea that we would all become part of the whole, that we would be extensions of, AI, the machine, that type of thing. And I like the free thinkers. I like people that my dad would always say, don't be normal. Anybody can be normal. But when you live without having an owner's manual, so to speak, that's what makes life exciting.
Right. Not knowing.
Not knowing. Not knowing what's over the next hill. I love it. But the fact that we have sightings every day, almost every hour of every day, it's either something that has set up shop here, it's right here with us, or it's able to slip in and out at will from
Right,
another
like through
dimension.
portals.
Yeah, from another dimension. And to me, that is making more and more sense. Something that may even be here in spite of us.
Yeah.
That we just happen to observe.
Because a lot of people talk about like USOs too.
Yes,
And
underwater.
perhaps that they have a base
That's
underwater.
certainly the case. That's certainly that they have established a base, and that would be also, the most scientific possibility that they would, in a long-term observation of planet Earth, that they would have a base, for example, on the moon, on the backside of the moon, or at the bottom of the ocean, or at Antarctica, or at the Arctic Circle, that type of thing. So, all possibilities. I agree.
Planet, the way it rotates on its axis, is able to house millions of species simultaneously because we've got brackish water, salt water,
Right.
Yes, the toxic water, and we've got the desert, rainforest, and so this is like the only planet that actually offers all these unique climates at the same time, and so it becomes like our galaxy's arc. I mean, we've had what, Don, 5 or 6 global extinctions. And yet we've got 9 million species, and we're finding more all the time that don't even make sense to have these weird characteristics.
To compliment you, Tom. I mean, it's very astute on your part. I've never, observed you really get that deep before, but that's wonderful, because as we have often pointed out, that right here on planet Earth, whether we're talking about the depths of the ocean or the highest mountain peaks, every possible species, creature, living entity here on this planet, those conditions exist on other planets as well. I mean, just about all such living conditions that could be extant throughout the universe are right here on planet Earth. No different than every mineral, every metal, everything that is here on planet Earth is extant throughout the universe. You know how we know that?
How?
Every time a meteorite strikes,
Right.
made of the exact same compounds that are right here.
Our Earth was stopped, for lack of a better word.
Well, as you also suggested, that as hard as anthropology has tried to establish, a continuation as far as from the apes up to the humans, there is no connection. No, again.
So now you've got the O negative factor, which has no ties to the monkey. A positive does. So there's actually no there's no history as to where the O negative blood groups came from. Now the majority of them are Bostonians, and my body temperature runs 1.5 to 2 points below normal. Pretty much everybody with an O negative. So it's almost like we're a species within a species. And so when I have this discussion with other people, they're like, "Oh, nonsense, that's impossible." Well, we just talked about having 9 million species after 5 global extinctions. Why would humans not have a variation?
Yeah, you're an Aquarius.
Good point.
Different.
Right.
Because I'm Aquarian,
Yeah, he's an alien, basically.
And that if we are truly dealing as far as with an alien life form, that we should then expect the same with them. I remember asking Dr. Michael Swords and even the late scientist, the famous scientist Arthur C. Clarke, would suggest that we should not expect aliens to be, three-eyed monsters and, demonstrate as far as, physiological, appendages and things much unlike here on planet Earth. And for the same thing we were just talking about, that whether we're talking about the depths of the ocean or the highest peaks, that we're talking about 2 eyes, ears, a mouth, that type of thing, internal organs, and essentially, whether at the greatest depths of the pressure of the water or at the thinnest atmosphere, that we're pretty much all related. And that may be the case even throughout the universe itself. That in that regard, we may all be related.
We are the final result. We are the one that got released, right? Because there had to be human beings, if you will, that failed because they didn't have this or they didn't have that, or we didn't have gallbladders.
You and
Don't we
viewers,
just evolve though?
yeah. But here's what speaking of that, I'd like you all to consider. The eye, the function of the eye. It's like a camera, correct? It has to invert the image. The brain inverts it, flips it, correct?
Right, in the back, right.
How would that evolve? Think about that. Just imagine for 1,000 years, 10,000 years that it didn't do that. How could you function? Debate with a college campus as far as with someone on that order. And that ended the debate because he could not come up with an answer.
I was thinking, I'm like, I can't think of an answer for that one.
He said, I've never considered that. No one has ever mentioned that. How could the eyes possibly evolve?
Right.
For what they do.
And here's the other thing, Don. If everything was evolving, it'd still be evolving and nothing else is changing.
No.
I mean, you might have an animal or a pet that becomes more comfortable in its environment, or like hypothetically, more domesticated, like a wolf or something.
Yeah. And then hopefully you also will be there as far as next festival. Thom only gets allocated 2 chairs. And so I can make sure that there'll be 4 chairs at his table.
Oh, that's
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
you.
Yeah, I told you Don was all right. Yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
thank
I want to mention River. I don't know if you remember exactly what happened with our case or not.
I do.
But there were 2 spheres. One was white and one was orange. And what I saw was very similar to what was discussed at the UAP hearings, where they had the square type of apparatus inside the circle. I'm wondering if that's what I saw. Yeah, I saw it as a sphere, but it was orange and one was lit up, so I couldn't really see inside. But when I was watching the hearings, I'm like, my God, that sounds very similar to what I saw.
Mhm.
It didn't occur to me that there might have been something else in it. That's a common thing.
Exactly. I was just going to say it's a commonality that we look for patterns. That's the
Right.
whole idea of either whether you're trying to reverse engineer something, duplication of effort, and the idea that you can take something into a lab and you can demonstrate that there's been a progression. And throughout history, there's been a progression with the summer of 1947 up till today. And it's because of that progression that people are able, such as yourself, go back and go, my God, I never contemplated that in the past, but is it possible? Is that what I saw? Is that what I just didn't have the information to read into what I was, perceiving? And now it's making more sense. Same thing can be said with when you deal with multiple witnesses, that every time you speak to someone new, it should hopefully provide a new line of questions for those who came before.
Yeah.
That's what's happening with me. Exactly.
Circular. An investigation should never be linear. It should be circular, that you are always able to, digress and retreat and go back. But you want the circle to still move forward. But nonetheless, you don't ever shut the door
Right.
on life's experiences because, as I often say, school never lets out.
That's a good point.
Exactly.
So when I first saw it, I used to refer to it as an orb, like an orb, right? Then it was, I'm like, no, it's not really an orb because that's more paranormal ghost type of a verbiage. It was a sphere. And then I see, all these other testimonies about a sphere with something inside of it. I'm like, oh my God, that makes sense. It's like you said, school's never out. And so I'm even learning from my own experience.
My most curious thing is obviously during the digs and the wreckage, was there any type of, like in the lab, I'm sure you guys have tested some certain things. Was there any types of higher frequencies or was there something that typically showed that it
Magnetic
was
anomalies or something,
not,
yeah.
yeah, like not natural?
Good question. Very good question. In fact, when like a fragment would be electrocharged, would be subjected
Mhm.
even to magnetism. And you see,
Right.
first of all, if it performs, if it reacts just like you would expect a conventional alloy to perform. And that was one of the things that I think very early on, even the government concluded that the phenomenon was electromagnetically powered, propelled,
I was thinking, yeah.
because whereas our polarity here on planet Earth is of a negative charge, that this was positive. And that's one of the reasons that you would have the electromagnetic effects, that it stalls automobiles and planes. And if it's hovering over your home, you'll have a quick blackout, that type of thing.
Mhm.
So to date, anything that has been recovered does not react that way. It seems that it's rather dated. It seems rather neutralized. And
Mhm.
Professor Kembler would suggest that we don't know the rate that such things have degraded over the past 77, going on 78 years. And so I guess we need to take that into account. But
Right.
What about the glass though? The sand was glass. When was that found, and was that ever part of a list of abnormal findings?
it was discovered 2 months after the incident by Rickett and La Paz. And then there were ranchers in the area that also reported it. And in our efforts to try to find it in recent years, we have two sources. And so,
See, with our incident, the thing that happens with our incident, the corn grows about 17 feet tall,
yeah,
and
that's
and a mile down the road or half mile down the road, it's 5 or
12 feet.
6 feet.
Right,
Well,
right,
5 or
right.
6 feet. And
Oh,
so and we've had areas there where nothing grows at all, and yet nobody cares. It's like, oh, whatever. Those are the telling things to me. I mean, that is physical.
yes, yes,
And
yes.
just like the glass is physical. How come no
It's
one goes, oh my God, they actually found something? Travis were there. You and I were both at the site there, and the rings were different. So there is an effect on the environment. And I think that needs to be looked at more seriously. 3 major accounts here that all had an environmental impact.
Give you
Is
an
there
example.
radiation?
Well, possibly, or microwave. There have been landing cases. The famous Delphos, Kansas case, where there was a phosphorus ring that would glow nights thereafter, and then it had dehydrated the soil, that the soil would never germinate again, and it would repel water. So the hovering craft had so affected. So the suggestion was that it had microwaved the surrounding vegetation.
That's interesting.
One of the things that also has been, tested within a lab is that the vegetation on the surface will be fine, but yet the roots will be seared, will be burnt. That would also suggest microwave. The reason they wouldn't, land on the White House front lawn, with the proverbial "take us to your leader" type of.
Because they don't recognize anybody as a leader here.
Well, that's that, and what's the first thing we typically do? We shoot first.
Ask questions later. I think our planet just happens to have certain alloys and minerals that are of interest.
Well, the late Michael Persinger from Canada, his theory was that whether it involved like earthquake lights, and that there would then be simultaneous reports of UFOs within that area, but that the shifting of quartz formations giving off luminous displays, and that any human being, anybody within proximity of that luminous globe of light, that there would be an interaction with the frontal lobe of the brain, causing them to hallucinate. Well, and then I posed the question to Persinger, well, why is it that they all hallucinate alien abductions? Shouldn't it be, just random, experiences that have nothing to do with UFOs, and then maybe a small percentage may hallucinate that, that aspect, that type of thing. And he didn't have an answer for me. So it's so often where science tries to shoehorn their own theories into the actual reports of what people are describing. And then when we get beyond the human perception and we're able to once again establish that commonality, those patterns, the fact that people are describing essentially the same beings, the same craft, the same experiences, and that it doesn't matter if it's the Aborigines in Australia, or it doesn't matter if it's someone in the heart of Chicago. They describe what they've seen, what they experience, and it's the same phenomenon. So, and then we have the dig. So as we get closer to that, I will also, get through Thom, get things arranged. And welcome to, being part of the adventure.
I always wanted to be an archaeologist at one point in my life. Yeah.
And we have archaeologists, we have geologists, we have anthropologists. So we set up different teams. And so we do it professionally, but we also have a grant. I mean, the fact that, you have this new troop of, and I'll use that word as far as, again, all generosity, in that it's hard to find good co-hosts. It's hard to find people that are on the same wavelength. But you are the creator. You are the one who started this, Thom. So it is basically your show. But you still give full credit to everyone involved. And,
I've got the best crew I've ever had in my life. I mean, Rachel's been she's like my right hand. She's been fantastic. Alana, I've known since she was 3 years old, and she's, seriously, I remember when she used to go, "Mommy." Right. I mean, her mother actually helped me out in my office in Miami. My new model, she'd come in and help me out. So I've known her since she was 3, and Susie I've known for a long time, and it just I think it's I'm grateful, because it's not like there's money in this. We're just kind of all just having fun and interviewing people that we take an interest in.
We need to continue supporting the Tim Burchetts.
And that Thom Reed.
I do. He is actually a constituent of mine now. There's a lot of folks up north. They've moved down south. The actual physical harm, if you will, that has been reported to occurred to, I believe, him and his brother. It's just.
This subject has always been very taboo. That at great risk to your career, your family life, your status within the community. That's why many of the best cases are still out there. We haven't even heard of them. And that's why it's wonderful, like podcasts such as this and anything else regarding the subject. It demonstrates great power in numbers, and the fact that the more vocal, the more light we shine on this subject, it's not going to go away. It never has, and it won't. And I'm so happy to see, as far as the next generation of young people that are going, my God, what greater, story. I often talk about Roswell, it's the biggest story of the millennium. And that's the whole point.
Yeah.
There's nothing else when we're talking about we are being visited by an intelligence off the planet. That's the biggest story of the millennium.
Yeah.
And how could you not be just totally drawn in and intrigued by the possibilities? So I wish you well, as far as all of you, and consider yourselves all invited as far as the next date. Well, I've enjoyed this, as I always do.